We are so close to the Premier League, and you know what that means. It's prediction season, and today we are going to be predicting the entire Premier League table, from the big clubs to the mid-table clubs to the relegation battling clubs. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe for more football content every single week. And make sure to comment down below who you think will win this year's Premier League. But without further ado, let's get into the prediction. From the Championship into the Premier League, you'd think that you would strengthen your team a lot during the transfer window because the quality of the Premier League is miles ahead from the Championship. Unfortunately, Bournemouth haven't done that with a team that looks very weak. I think they'll struggle this season. They've only brought in 3 players in the form of Joe Rothwell, Ryan Fredericks, as well as Tavernier from Middlesbrough. Their most expensive signing was Tavernier for around £10 million. I don't think any of these players are game-changing or team-changing enough to get them out of a relegation battle. I think Bournemouth are up for a poor season this year. That's why they're last place for me. Moving on to 19th, I have got Leeds United. Unfortunately, I just think the huge departure of Rafinha has killed this team, following the fact that Rafinha was easily their best player last season. I think Leeds will struggle. They haven't made too many great signings. They obviously brought in Tyler Adams from Leipzig, which I think is a good signing, but not a team-changing signing once again. So I think they're going to be relegated back down to the Championship. It's been a good run for Leeds in the last 2 seasons, but unfortunately, I just don't think they'll survive this time. Next up, we've got the final relegation spot. And when I say hours, I mean this took me hours to decide who got this final spot. I mean, it was a toss-up between 3 teams, but I think I finally narrowed it down to Everton. Yes, I do know that they've escaped relegation just narrowly last season, but with the departure of Richarlison, their main player in that side, and 60 million coming to the club, they just haven't reinvested it well. They brought in Dwight McNeil from relegated club Burnley, as well as James Tarkowski. I just don't think Tarkowski is a player that is going to revolutionize this team to even stay up in the Prem. McNeil is a good signing in all fairness, however, is he Richarlison level? I don't think so. We'll have to wait and see, but for me, Everton are going down. Moving on to 17th, it's another newly promoted team in Fulham, and what a season they had last year. Obviously, they finished first in the Championship with Mitrovic on fire. I mean, I believe he scored around 45 goals or something. And their recent transfer window business, oh my days. For me, I wouldn't be surprised if they finished higher than 17th because it's just been that good. They have brought in Kevin Mbabu from Wolfsburg for 5 million, who's in his prime at 27 years old. They brought in Painha, a very strong, tenacious CDM from Sporting Lisbon for 20 million. They have brought in Andreas Pereira from Manchester United for around 10 million. Very creative and finally might get his break in the Premier League. Bernd Leno from Arsenal, very good goalkeeper who's been frozen out of the Arsenal team due to brilliant displays from Aaron Ramsdale, but for 3 million, what a signing Leno is. Fulham's team is looking fantastic, and I think they might give us a little bit of a surprise this season. Next up, we've got 16th, and it's a team that has usually been in this grey area of just above the relegation zone, but just below the mid-table area, and that is Southampton. Usually, they've just been so stale, the football has been stale, and they've had some shocking results in recent years with 9-0s flying about. But this season, they have gotten a lot of players, and they've got a lot of players for the future as well. They've brought in Bazunu, a very young goalkeeper from Manchester City for 14 million. Joe Aribo for 7 million from Rangers, the highlight of their transfer window so far. Dominated the Scottish Premiership, and I think he might give Southampton an edge over their mid-table rivals. I think in a few years with all these young signings, Southampton may rise to the occasion, and they may have a renaissance and get to that West Ham Leicester City level of finishing 10th or 9th and overachieving. We'll have to wait and see, but Southampton have had a pretty decent window. Strolling on to 15th, another team that has been newly promoted to the Premier League, and the final team that has been newly promoted that we will be discussing, Nottingham Forest. Now, this one is pretty unexpected. I'm sure a lot of you are going to be, a bit shocked with that. However, let me just go through their signings because their transfer window has been impeccable. They've brought in Awoniyi from Union Berlin for 20 million, Nico Williams from Liverpool for 20 million, Niakate from Mainz for 10 million, Omar Richards from Bayern from 8 million. I mean, they've been really interested in the Bundesliga this year. They've also brought in Jesse Lingard on a free and Dean Henderson on a free. What a window that is, and I think that they are going to be staying up comfortably, and they might be the Brentford of this year. Speaking of Brentford, they are my 14th place team. I think another solid season is coming for Brentford, and I think they will stay up once again. They've obviously made a few signings like Ben Mee, who is a very solid defender and a great leader, as well as Aaron Hickey, a young player from Bologna. They have lost Christian Eriksen. Will that creative department leave a big hole? We'll have to wait and see. But for me, Brentford are finishing at a comfortable 14th. As we go on to 13th, I have got Brighton, and I think 13th is actually overachieving for Brighton. I think Graham Potter is a great manager, and I think he will be able to get that result of a 13th place finish. However, Brighton just have had a poor transfer window. They've brought in only a few good players, but the loss of Bissouma in my eyes is way too big to cover up for it. So I think Brighton are set for another mediocre Premier League. Moving on to 12th, getting very close to the top 10 now, I have got Crystal Palace. Obviously, they've had a pretty good season last season. However, with the return of Eze from his big injury last year, I think this is a new 20 million signing in the sense that he's coming back into that team. His creativity is unmatched and I can't wait to see him play for Crystal Palace. Also, they have brought in a new goalkeeper in the form of Sam Johnston, obviously to back up for Guaita, who's been poor as of late, especially against Liverpool. I mean, what was he doing with that goal? But I think Crystal Palace will finish with a solid 12th place finish, just outside the top 10. We'll see with the young players, maybe they can put them higher in the future. Moving on to 11th, maybe a lot of people wouldn't have expected this, but I have actually gone for Wolves. I think a lot of people would have put them higher, and also a lot of people probably would have put them lower. But for me, their new signings this year have been fantastic. Obviously, they've completed Wang Hee-chan's option to buy, and they've brought him in after his loan from Leipzig for around 16 million. They've also brought in Nathan Collins from Burnley, a young, powerful defender, for 25 million. I think they got him for a very good price there. Also, Adama Traore is back from his dreadful loan at Barca. Started off great, but then it became very anticlimactic very quickly. I'm excited to see them play next year, and I think they are going to finish at 11th. So we've made it to the top 10, and at 10th, I have gone for Aston Villa. What a squad they have, and what a job Steven Gerrard is doing. They've obviously brought in Diego Carlos, who I think is the highlight of their window, for 31 million from Sevilla. Another Brazilian they've brought in and finalized is Coutinho, who has activated his option to buy after a brilliant spell at the end of last season, finally using that huge abundance of Jack Grealish money. I think Villa is going to do well, and I can see them finishing in the top 10. Right, I know I introduced this video as a Premier League prediction video, but we're going to swift over to the Saudi League and look at Newcastle United's transfer window. I mean, what a summer they've had. They've brought in Sven Botman from Lille for 37 million, Matt Targett for 17 million, and Nick Pope for 11 million. Three players that I think can change this team and turn it around for them. And I think in a few years, with all that Saudi cash injection, they might actually have a chance of finishing in a Europe spot. We'll have to wait and see. But in all seriousness, Newcastle look like they're going to do well this season. And into the Conference League spots, first up we have Leicester City. Now obviously they've had a dreadful window, not making any moves for anyone, and I'm not sure why. I'm sure by the end of this video in a couple of weeks they'll probably be in for someone, but this is really poor business from Leicester so far. I can see them finishing where they finished last year, 8th place for Leicester in my eyes. Taking up the next Europa League spot, I have got West Ham United. Now, obviously, in recent years, West Ham have just transformed dramatically into a Champions League, Europa League spot contending team. In terms of signings, they have brought in some great players. Scamacca from Sassuolo for 36 million, Nayef Aguerd from Stade Rennais for 35 million, as well as Areola in goal from PSG. He obviously had a pretty good season last year, and I'm excited to see him play some more. They did lose, of course, Yarmolenko, Fredericks, and Masawauku, but I don't think that's going to be a big deal for them, and they'll manage pretty well. I think they're going to finish 7th, but they could finish higher. And so we have made it to the Big Six. This is where the controversy starts. This is where people get mad at me in the comments, but here we go. Now, obviously, Chelsea haven't had an eventful window. I mean, they've only signed Raheem Sterling. They've only signed Koulibaly. They've only brought in Conor Gallagher from the end of his loan. They've only lost Lukaku, Rudiger, Christensen. I mean, nothing truly eventful, but let's get into it. I mean, Sterling coming from Man City. This is going to be huge for them. They haven't had a direct player like this since Eden Hazard, a player who knows how to finish chances, so I think Sterling is going to be great. Koulibaly, towering, powerful, and I can just see him dominating the Premier League. So we'll have to wait and see. But for me, Chelsea are definitely getting into the top 6. 5th place, here we go. We have made it to the big one. Manchester United, for me, are going to finish just outside the Champions League spot yet again. And with the new signings of Lisandro Martinez for 57 million, in terms of outgoings, I mean, United have lost a lot. They have lost Andreas Pereira, Paul Pogba, Jesse Lingard, Nemanja Matic, Dean Henderson, all for a combined fee of £0. I mean, shocking business with Paul Pogba there, but what did we expect with Manchester United? Hopefully they can give their fans something to shout about this season, and hopefully they can qualify for the Champions League. But for me, it's just not happening. 5th place for me. Now, moving into the Champions League positions, this is where it gets controversial and difficult. For me, Spurs are going to finish into that top 4. They've obviously brought in Richarlison for 60 million, which is huge in terms of quality. But I think he's very overpriced. I think they would have been better sticking with Bergwijn, who obviously went to Ajax in the end for 30 million. They also brought in Bissouma, who I think is a great signing for 30 million. Also Perisic coming in on a free. They've done a pretty good transfer window, and I can see Spurs going far this year for a solid 4th and a Champions League spot. And so we have made it into the top 3. Now I can obviously go for the remaining Liverpool, City or Arsenal. I'm gonna go for Arsenal, and obviously they have brought in Gabriel Jesus for 52 million, Zinchenko for 35 million, Fabio Vieira for 35 million as well. 3 big signings there, and 3 signings you'd expect to impress this season. But 3rd place, I think my mate Ty would be happy. And here we go, the top 2, the ones that everyone has been waiting for. At 2nd place, I'm gonna go for Manchester City. I'm sick of them winning the league. And after the Community Shield, Liverpool do look strong and Man City do look like they need to figure out some things. Whether they do that quicker than the Premier League starts, we'll have to wait and see. But for me, I think that Man City just don't have it in them to do it again. Obviously, they have signed Erling Haaland for 60 million, the biggest signing of the window so far. They have also signed Calvin Phillips for 50 million, which was a huge signing. I think he's going to provide a lot of stability and tenacity within that team. They also have Pedro Porro coming back from loan, Julian Alvarez coming back from loan, as well as the signing of Stefan Ortega as a backup to Ederson. Now, in terms of departures, I mean, they've got some huge players going, with Raheem Sterling going for 60 million to Chelsea, Jesus going for 50 million to Arsenal, and Zinchenko going for 35 million to Arsenal as well. City have done well this summer, but will they finish in top of the Premier League this year again? I don't think so. And so we have made it to the champions. In my eyes, it's going to be Liverpool. It's going to be a very tough season for them. I don't think they'll dominate it as they did when they won the league a few years ago, but I think they're going to narrow it ahead of Manchester City and Arsenal. They've obviously made a huge signing in Darwin Núñez for 75 million. Will he live up to the hype? He's looking like it right now. He's scoring some goals in preseason. We'll have to wait and see. They also lost Sadio Mane for 32 million, by far their biggest loss in recent history. Almost comparable to the Steven Gerrard loss, and it's going to be very hard to replace them despite the influx of attackers they have in that front 4 with Núñez, Salah, Diaz and Diogo Jota. Now into the individual awards, there are a lot of players of top quality here. I mean, Salah, Haaland, Kane, Ronaldo, Son, just to name a few. So many great players, but who's going to win the Golden Boot for me? I think it's going to be Mo Salah yet again. Doubt this man, bring in every great player in the world. Salah always comes out on top. He's consistent. His consistency is unmatched. I mean, how can you go for that many seasons scoring 20 goals? Every year he's been at Liverpool, he has scored a minimum of 20 goals. He's been absolutely fantastic, and for me, he's an all-time great in the Premier League. Also, for top assister, I'm going to have to go for Kevin De Bruyne. With Haaland up top, I can just see him wrecking havoc on every defense with his incredible ability of finding his player in that box. I think De Bruyne is going to get so many assists this year. Young player of the year for me is going to be Erling Haaland. Despite Núñez coming in, I think Haaland is just going to score so many goals. Not enough for Man City to win the league for me, but I still think he's going to have a great individual season. So ladies and gentlemen, that is my Premier League prediction for 2023. Let me know what you guys thought of it, and let me know who you think will win the Premier League this year. If you guys want to see a more in-depth analysis, make sure to check out my Spotify podcast. There'll be in the link in the description down below. I'm alongside an Arsenal fan where we discuss every single team's upcoming campaign in true depth and in true detail, and we compare each other's predictions and try to figure out why we have gone for different options. So that's a great watch if you guys are interested in that. Make sure to like and subscribe. We are getting so close to 100 subscribers, and it will mean the world to me if we could hit that number. So make sure you hit that big red button. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.